Good evening. I'm Enari Darklor and welcome to Churikua. Tonight, in our compilation from episodes 13, 14, 15, and 16, we will listen to the stories based on the legends of the Flying Dutchman, Mul Gwishin, the Devil's Armchair, and Lovely Mbriana. Between each story, you will have little musical intermissions. So I hope you enjoy it and sweet dreams.
Believe it or not, I have always been curious about pirates, ships, and all kinds of stories that involve adventures and life inside ships. I was born in Rotterdam, but due to my parents' job, I had to live in Cape Town in South Africa for many years of my childhood and adolescence. Something I was fascinated about, and until nowadays, is how sailors had been victims, if you want to refer to it like that, by Cape of Good Hope among its legends, and the most famous, the Flying Dutchman. Surely you have already listened about the captain whose ship sailed to high speed and many people believe he had done a deal with the devil. Nevertheless, one stormy night, while they were sailing through Cape of Good Hope, a storm was so strong that he asked to tie him to the rudder of his ship, challenging God to sink his ship. This point is where the versions differ. In one, it is said that his irreverence and mocking at God, who punished him, cursing him for challenging him, and due to his mistreat to his crew, and others that just facing the god of the sea's rage. By the way, he was condemned to wandering through the sea without being able to go to shore at ports. When I listened to this story, I became fascinated and I love it. After all, he was Dutch, such as me, and he had sailed from where I used to live. Something made me dream on being a pirate. I started researching in order to know more about the story of piracy since I remember. This was when I had recently returned to Rotterdam. In my first night in my hometown, something I lived so vivid and so real. I dreamt about sailing in a ship. I was the captain. I boosted myself from being the best and the, the one with the highest speed without mattering here says. I was Captain Bernard Fogg. My crew obeyed me in all my requests and tasks. We were sailing from Java to Rotterdam. Sea shows itself calm and helping us to move on, until one day a great storm appeared. The sky became darker and darker. Thunders made the skies roar, and the waves of the sea were trembling on its wrath. I was tied to the rudder and shouted, "Oh God, I never fallen as your prey on these territories of the sea, unless in this moment would I do." The storm was becoming worse. The sails were breaking, bollards were cracking, and I knew something else were going to happen, so I said, "That's fine. I'm able to do a deal with the devil if that helps us to get off lightly from the storm. That's it, or I'm not Captain Fogg." Little later, I listened to a laughter, and a deep voice was heard saying, "That's a deal." The storm started easing, little by little. After this, the crew saw me differently, such as were afraid of me. I continued on my job, and I saw how we were arriving to our destiny. Nevertheless, we couldn't go ashore. We were at a couple of hours to arrive, but we couldn't arrive. The crew became despair. I threatened them and shouted to get calm, but it was useless. The hours passed, and it was already a new day when some men lay down dead in the ship and some others jumped on the sea. I saw by my own how they drew and how their faces full of fear and despair through their destiny, blaming me of all. I took the rudder again, and the ship didn't respond to the request of going ashore, but did it to the request of getaway. I ended up going to a new destiny alone in my ship. I took my gun, and in the open seas, I asked to be forgiven for what happened. My surprise was enormous. At the time, I woke up, saw my hands as a corpse. I continued on my ship, sailing in that eternal voyage with the rudder on my hands, and I just saw the ships getting away from me. I saw mainland, and I couldn't get closer until the storm reached me and made me fall to the sea. I saw myself falling down slowly to the time I lost the consciousness. I woke up and I found myself in my bed in Rotterdam with a pirate's book in my hands, with a ticket from a shop as a bookmark, just at Bernard Fork's story. I have to confess that night I couldn't sleep again due to all my efforts. I started drawing, and when the dawn took its way through darkness, I couldn't avoid looking at the horizon and the sea with that magnificent and magic, such as calling me to go to it. I went out from my room without doing any kind of noise. I went to the attic and went to the roof. From there, I could see a very ancient ship floating and flying upside down among clouds. Then it disappeared and the sky overcasted. I don't know what happened, and do I know what I saw? Even nowadays, I never dream of that again. From time to time, when at dawn I see a ship sailing on the skies, and after that, there is always a storm coming up. My bitterest memory is when I was 7 years old. I had two younger siblings, John and Bay. John was 4 and Bay 2. My parents were working hard, so I actually had to look after them and see that nothing wrong happened to them. One day, we went to a river. We had a picnic with my uncle, my aunt, my grandpa, and my cousins. We were enjoying swimming in a not deep part of the river. I remember how John, my cousins, Park, John, and me were in the water, while the adults were having a good time talking, preparing the meal, and of course, keeping an eye on us in order we didn't go farther. Mom was with Bay in arms, and inside the water, while all of us were playing and having fun, the weirdest thing was having place. Meanwhile, I was diving underwater to wet my head and hair. Then I opened my eyes, and it seemed I saw a pale shade, such as someone pretty pale on the underwater, with its hair close to my legs. I was there with the idea of going out of the water. In that brief instant, I became really scared. I tried to swim a little more to the shore. Ian, who was pretty calm, suddenly sank in the water. Park and I took her and tried to pull her out. I dived again and I saw that pale person pulling Jean from her legs. We started screaming out, and my uncle got into the water. He kicked out underwater, and after pulling so much and took much effort, could take Jean out from the trap. He took her ashore, and suddenly one was in the same situation. This time, Dad and my uncle did anything they could and saved her. Little by little, we were going ashore. My grandpa and my aunt were looking after John and John, while Park and I were pulled back to deeper waters. Dad did his best to take me out, and so my uncle went to Park. I felt like someone was pulling us from the bottom, and being completely immersed, I turned down and I saw that a woman was pulling me down, looking at me. I was pretty scared, and it made it difficult to breathe. I was losing consciousness, and it was when I was taken out from the water. When I recovered consciousness, I realized for a little moment that they walked and slipped out, falling into the water. He was pulled to the bottom while my uncle and dad tried to rescue him. My aunt and mom barely could do anything else, having to take care of John, me, and Park. Whatever was pulling us to the bottom of the river was taking advantage of the time when we were in calm, floating on the surface of water, and its advantage was bigger when we were far ashore and even thought the bottom wasn't more than 2.5 meters. I saw how water was taking Bay far ashore. They swam, but when they could take him out of the water, my dad was in the same situation than us. My uncle took Bay unconscious ashore and helped Dad to go out. They swam away as soon as they could. All of us went out from there. After all, Bay was the one in more delicate state. Until the worst happened, Bay didn't survive. All that day was gloomy and blue. Nothing that happened to us had an explanation, at least one that was coherent and logical. The nurse who was taking care of us was lovely and paying attention, but something that with no doubt caught my attention was when she asked me for the bruises in my legs. They looked more like scratches and, at least in my case, looked like hands that had pressed me so strongly, causing them. I didn't know what to answer. Since that time, I've never wanted to go any river, lake, or any other thing related again. Then, one day, while I was in our language class, we started discussing about an entity known as fishing. They were all those who died in water and were looking for more victims thrown in them in order to don't feel alone again. I saw a little bit of clash. Since then, I tried to not go to any landmark or attraction related to water. I don't want to think of Bay, sad and lonely in the deepest point of the river, looking for someone else to be drowned, to end with his solitude. To whom it corresponds. If you find this, I want to let you know I became a victim of this armchair. Warnings about the assets here inside couldn't be more than my curiosity and lack of attention. I was set to make the inventory of what is in this place. My coworker started doing it, and then he was found dead on this armchair. It was said that this was the one causing his death, whereas it was also said that he was ill and this was just a coincidence. My coworker, the other janitor, died. He was a ray of sunshine. He said it gave it goosebumps at the time of sitting there. Later, he felt really exhausted and had nightmares at night, being unable to fall asleep after waking up. Suddenly, that terrible day, I was looking for him, looking everywhere and in every corner I could. He didn't answer, and then I found him looking at the roof with the mouth open and his eyes and mouth bleeding. Once the investigation ended, orders to continue with the inventory arrived. I set two armchairs similar each other. The first is where I found my coworker dead, and the other was where I would rest in case I needed. Everything went as usual until I sat. I felt an intense cold. I realized I sat on the first one. I felt tons of pressure surrounding my body. I standed up as fast as I could and I went to the restroom to wash my face. That night at home, I dreamt on someone that made me lay on a table. My inside was open and I was screaming. My organs were taken out and I felt too much pain. It was so strong, the shock, that I couldn't fall asleep again. The following day, while I was monitoring, it was such as the mirrors and reflections from the place showed a man teaching too much time ago. Then I saw the shadow of someone sitting on the armchair. I didn't believe my eyes, so I took the chance of talking with someone from the university that came to ask for some stuff that has already been registered on the inventory. So I asked her about the armchair. She told me that the owner, whose name was Andres de Proaza, was teaching in the medicine school, and after being involved on the vanishing and death of a 9-year-old child who died while Andres de Proaza was practicing an autopsy to him while he was alive. Once, some water from the river was poured with blood. He was investigated and accepted he had done a pact with the devil to get those knowledges and sentenced by the Inquisition. It gave me goosebumps once she described these details. It is said that his sets seized by the authorities were on sale, but none of them were sold out. So, with the course of time, they ended here. I wasn't brave enough to tell this person what had just happened to me, so I decided to continue with my task. I stayed without being able to sleep. I dreamt with the same again. Anxiety was consuming me, and I wanted to think that all those were superstitions. Something inside me was telling me that this was my last day on earth, all by one mistake. So, eager to do something about it, I decided to write this letter. I am sorry that everything has ended up this way. I ask my wife and my children to apologize me, especially for don't say anything related to this. I think because there is a creed of hope that isn't real, and I could be able to go back home safe. I feel more exhausted and more exhausted, such as that armchair is calling me. I don't know if I could resist it longer. I hope something is done about this, and that the end of my life held for a purpose, to avoid that no one else ended as another victim in the same situation in which mine is surely ending. Sincerely, Prospero Urbide. Sometimes life can be so pleasant and amazing. There is no doubt that traditions and superstitions are not understood until you find them on the road to understand them. That was what happened to me. So here is the reason for my story. All in my family used to let an empty chair at the time of having a meal, or also letting any other place ready in case of having a guest, in order they could take a seat, and taking also into account the fact of speaking badly at someone or something during meal wasn't allowed. At the beginning, I thought it was in case someone from our family, a friend or neighbor came in order to be our guest. I remember that I was told, remember to let a chair available. But what I thought the least was that this seat was reserved for a very singular guest. One day, my father arrived home very sad. He told us he has lost his job because where he worked was in bankrupt. All the employees were fired. A sudden moving action, including this to that. So, Mom summoned up the courage, and no matter the fact that she hadn't worked since she got married with Dad, she looked for a job in a jam store some squares away from home that stayed energetic as much as possible, sending curricula and applications everywhere possible. My sister, who studied in Rome, has found a part-time job, and I was working the same to help at home. The next day, after my father was fired, I saw him whispering something, such as he was praying. Oh, lovely Brianna, come to our home. Here you are always welcome, and we need your help to solve some problems we are dealing with. Little later, he's at the table. Mom arrived from work, and we had dinner all together. But once I had the chance, I asked Dad about this, and he told me, I think we never told you and your sister about this, haven't we? Exactly. Who is she? Is she a saint? No. Look, Lovely Brianna was a beautiful girl from a wealthy family. She was going to get married. Nevertheless, she was abandoned in the wedding ceremony. She, sad and sorrowful, after this, lost her mind. She was wandering around the city, coming into the houses. People was sorry for her and embraced her and took her as one more guest at home. She used to stay for a while or on a few occasions for whole days. Her dad understood this situation and being unable to do anything else to help, he gave back all that generosity and kindness to those who embraced her. Oh, I see. So why are you praying to her? Of course, this story is very old, so even though her death arrived, the tradition stills. Even though after her death, she is still taking care of us and visiting homes from the city. For that reason, we must let her a seat due to the fact that she is our guest in case she wants to come. We can also ask her to come when we are facing difficulties, such as us right now. So she's in charge of giving back to those who embrace her, unless the family proves to be a great host. If the family doesn't prove to be a good host, she will let you know her regret. We continue routine since our great change. Some weeks later, at the time of meal, we felt a cold wind blowing coming in. Dad greeted, "Good day, lovely girl. How do you feel? Come on, take a seat. We have prepared a chair just for you." So then, while we were setting the table and serving meal, we were talking about how it was our day. At the beginning, I felt tense, but little by little, I focused on talking with Dad from my day, and he said that he had sent some curricula and has received some calls. Nevertheless, those hasn't gotten very positive results, such as "Thank you, we will get in touch with you as soon as possible." He continued expecting to be called. When Mom arrived, Dad introduced her to Lovely Mbriana, received her and embraced her wonderfully, and once the table was set, we had our meal, talking energetically as always. Once we finished our meal, I started tidying up the table and washing dishes. Mom asked Lovely Brianna to join her to have a coffee in the living room. A little later, she excused herself and came back to work. Once I finished with dishes, it was time to go back to work. I excused myself too with Lovely Brianna due to the fact that I had to go to work, and I thanked her for visiting us. Next day, Dad received a call from a company to work there. He was very happy because that was the work of his dreams, and he got it after the interview. Mom became a member of the Jam's store, and she's doing well. 2 days later, I found an envelope with money in our mailbox with 500 euros inside. Since then, we continue having an extra seat lovingly. In case she wants to come back, she will be embraced again, such as we did that time.